I think it's tricky. I think feminist, the word, makes people uncomfortable because it's implying female and not male. However, I think that in our society it is females who are generally oppressed, and in other societies especially, like, there are horrible conditions for women in other countries. Like in Saudi Arabia, they can't drive, they can't vote. There's tons of really oppressive different societies for women around the world today. And so feminism, if you look up the actual definition, it does mean equality, except it's just calling to attention that this oppression of women, and it doesn't, and it's kind of recognizing like support of women's like to reach equality. You know what I'm saying? Because without support of women and the end of oppression, there's not going to be equality anymore. Like in every society that women are given more opportunities and more rights, it becomes more equal. So that's a big idea. And feminism, like, it doesn't matter who you are, you can be a feminist because you can support ending the oppressive, misogynistic patriarchy and the oppressive issues that women have to deal with. And as a result, that men have to deal with too, because they're expected to, and so it means all those different things. And I think that the more people learn to think about that, then it will be okay, because it has a specific meaning for our society now. It doesn't, words, we assign them meaning. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not, like, it can mean what we want it to mean. And what it means is to reach equality. It means equality for the genders is what it means.
Oh, that's a big question. I think people definitely have a problem with the word feminism. I think, like, even my sisters, I think that they're feminists, but they have trouble accepting that label, I think. And I think that the reason for that is because, people who are labeled feminists can sometimes have a negative connotation. And when people say feminist, they might mean, or people think that they mean something negative, like that they are just really aggressive people or women. I think it's very difficult, because there are a lot of different sides to the argument, and there are a lot of different women, and each woman is individual, and each feminist is individual. Like, you don't have to be a woman to be a feminist. I don't think we should change the word, because I think the movement is still the same. The movement is about equal rights, and it's about having women having the same rights and being looked at the same as men, even though they are different, and recognizing those differences, but instead of kind of it's celebrating those instead of pushing women down, or whatever. I don't know. I think the reason that I know people that didn't want to be called feminists, they didn't want to be labeled as a feminist, is because they didn't really understand what the word meant, and they didn't really understand what the movement meant. But once they kind of explored that a little more and found out, what does it mean to really be a feminist? What does it really mean to call yourself that? Once they realized what that really meant, what the meaning of that was, they didn't have a problem with it anymore. So I think that it's really, once you explain that to people, and once you tell them that it's not about like really being hateful, or it's about bringing people together and bringing people up.
I do think we should keep the word feminist. I think the reason people are so uncomfortable with it is because feminism has been oftentimes misrepresented. A lot of people see feminism as women hating men and just anger and not actually going anywhere. But see, that's not true, and when women are angry, like, we should listen to them and listen to their intent as well as their emotion, rather than just telling them to calm down or calling them feminazis. That's just, no, don't do that.
identify with the word. I honestly don't see any problem with the word itself or the movement behind it, but I do believe the right has demonized it over the past couple years and associated it as a negative thing when the real meaning is just the support of women's civil rights. I don't think there's anything wrong with the label or the movement itself. I just think over the past couple years, not all conservatives, but some conservatives have adjusted the meaning to make it seem like feminists are anti-science college kids who don't understand the real world. And I feel like that's largely inaccurate, and the negativity behind the word is just because of this.
It gave me the confidence in many ways to recognize when I was like saying, oh, I can't make that joke because in my head, like in my subconscious mind, oh, I shouldn't make that joke because people won't like me, and then realizing that, oh, I'm not supposed to make that joke because that's not something women say, but a guy will be able to say it and people will laugh. And so it really has given me the ability to recognize that and the confidence to try and do it anyways, because that's the only way that I know right now that I can really, really make a change is to just be myself, and to just, even if that means breaking out of the gender role. And it does. I don't think, there are a few people that exactly fit, like their true self exactly fits the role that society places on them.
I think hearing things like this and like really studying what it really means to be a feminist and women's issues all over the world, I think that kind of brings perspective. And I think that's really important to look at stuff like that and to know that there are people out there with very different, like we all have women's issues, but that they're very different issues depending on where you are and like how you've grown up and things like that. And I think that those things are amazing, like that women are just gaining rights and gaining different social, I don't know what I'm saying. Their circumstances of living are getting better over time. And I think that's really awesome to hear about. I don't know if I've experienced as much like sexism, or just because I've been so privileged in my upbringing, I haven't experienced some of the things that women here have or women in other countries have. But I think that like being a feminist and hearing that is always awesome. And so I feel like it's like whatever I can do to help that or to be a part of that is really important.
I do think they've made an impact on me. In recent years, I was always reluctant to call myself a feminist because I was afraid of what others would think of me for calling myself that. Whenever I would always just get a response of, shh, be quiet, shut up, like no one wants to hear it. They'd just compare me to everyone they've ever read things from on the internet. But recently, now that there's been more happening, I've started realizing that we can't just do that anymore, and that we have to stand up to bullshit, and we have to say no to things, and we can't just continue to let people silence us and tell us what we can and can't say and create progress. And so now I would confidently call myself a feminist.
I have the same in many ways, I think men should want to be a part of the movement because, I think that it sucks if you're growing up and you're a guy and you're told not to express yourself emotionally, or you're fit into a category the same way in which women are, except that the category that women are fit into has less rights and is paid less and suffers some consequences and has less freedoms than the category that men are forced into. And so I think that men should just try to, first of all, be themselves too, even if that means breaking the gender role, even if it means like you want to express yourself emotionally, you want to have a emotional conversation, you want to do something that feels true to yourself, that might not be what is expected to be a man, you know. Might want to listen to a woman and not feel the need to like to know before her, feel the need to like I'm not like a lot of men are really good at this and have practiced and are working on it, despite the fact that all men do benefit from the patriarchy. But like my dad and my brother are really good at that, and then like they're working on it because they know that they're privileged over me, and then they and my brother constantly reminds himself that he doesn't have to like be right above me or other girls in his class, you know, because in our family we really try to talk about this kind of stuff. And so just educating yourself no matter what gender you are, and thinking about it and trying to be yourself and trying to treat everyone equal regardless of gender.
I guess just listening, that's probably my biggest thing. Like when I talk to my dad, who I talk to a lot about this kind of stuff, I think that the most important thing for him to do for me is to listen to me and to take my ideas into consideration, and then to figure out how he can apply that to life, or how he wants to apply that to his life. And I'd say the same for my guy friends, just like listening to women and listening to what's happening in the world. And I think that's the most important thing, I guess.
I think that men should be involved in feminism. I think we need to make it us women need to make it inclusive to men, but also it's not just men. Like feminism needs to be more intersectional. A lot of it is just, I've been realizing more and more that because I'm white, I've had so much privilege growing up, and that feminism is not just for and by white women. It involves women of all colors, of all cultures and backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses, and whether they were born female or not. It needs to include everybody, and if we're going to actually create something. And for men, feminism also does, in gender roles, definitely affects men, because while traditional society has shown that women are supposed to be like weak and submissive and rely on men for everything, and then that also puts men in a role where they have to be very like emotionless and like tough all the time, and that they can't cry, and they have to be the providers, and they have to be strong all the time. And we can't have that. We need to get rid of these roles, and not only because it's going to benefit them should men support this, but also because every man has women in his life in one way or another. Every man probably has a mother or a sister or a friend who's a woman, and he should fight for them too.
I can't say for certain how it's affecting me, but when we make progress like this in a largely male-dominated world where males have been superior in terms of power for many years, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and I'm certain people seeing that we can continue to make progress is inspiring them to keep fighting for what they believe in, because there are times in the world where it can seem like in any kind of social activism movement like we aren't making progress. And I think it just shows to everybody still fighting that we can still keep going for the movement that we believe in, I suppose.
Feminism is about each woman. It's about each individual woman being able to feel comfortable in society, in the systems that they're a part of, and it's about them being able to explore every opportunity that they can, without feeling oppressed by the systems in place that promote the patriarchy.
I see feminism as gender equity. There's a difference between equity and equality. Equality everyone has the same exact thing. Equity is justice and fairness, and everyone has what they need in order to succeed in society. For example, you could have a short person, a medium height person, and a tall person, and they're all trying to see over a stand. And you could give each one of them one block, but the short person still wouldn't be able to see, the medium person would, and the tall person would be way over. But instead, you could give each person the amount of blocks they need in order to see. And that's justice, not just equality. And equality is what we need. And feminism especially is supporting women in rising up to gain equity. And empowerment is how I see it.
I feel like with any definition of any word, it's going to be, as long as it's a political word, it's going to be biased towards one political side or the other. And the first one sounds like a more moderate definition, and the second one sounded like a little bit of a rightist biased definition. So if I were to define it myself, I would say it's the movement or idea in support of women's civil rights with the goal of equality of the sexes.